This is my personal response to a video by the Messianic Manic on the mindlessness of God. Okay, I like that video because I understand both the thesis statement and the logical fallacy that's cited within that video. The problem is that the Christian postulate for God, at a minimum, okay, is that eternity is a superset of time, not a subset of time. In other words, time, by definition, exists within eternity. It's not just that, it's a symbolic fallacy of some kind. And I'm not formally trained in logic. I'm learning about logical fallacies as I go. But here's the problem. It's a symbolic fallacy. As a matter of fact, it's a point at which all human symbols break down to assume that we can understand the nature of eternity. The most we can do as mortal people is to, for example, to speculate about whether eternity requires materiality, which you can assume that it doesn't. Okay. Even if you assume that there's like a pocket dimension and call it heaven, okay, the problem is that where the symbols begin to break down is this whole notion of, the promise being eternal life with God, eternal rational consciousness with God. Okay, that is the promise behind Christianity, which Christianity is my primary premise. Okay, so basically, at a minimum, I know that time has to be included in a superset somewhere called eternity, because the problem with not including it there, the problem with not including it there is that in order to analyze any given closed system, assuming time is a finite set, okay, if time is a finite set and eternity is an infinite dimension, okay, then time is a subset of eternity as a superset. Okay? That's the best response I can make at this time. I love to play with these debates. I want to actually recruit more explicitly Christian scientists on board for why they believe what they believe. I've just spent one day hovering most of my comments around a video that mentioned, I think it was a debate between Ken Ham as a young Earth creationist, Earth only being 6,000 years old instead of, all the generalized numbers of quote unquote Darwinist science being entirely wrong. Now, I don't understand what methodology of proof he uses for that. Okay, my problem with Mr. Ham's arguments is that at a certain point, even the symbols of the Bible break down, and you can't really take the entire Bible as an a priori assumption and then assume that there are going to be no possible other interpretations of reality. See, that's the problem with the problem I have with the Creation Research Institute or whatever is that, basically, first of all, the dipole, the creation versus evolution debate is not even approaching a standard for, like, cross-disciplinary proofs of anything. Okay, so basically, it's not possible, for example, to make the argument that, say, Hugh Ross, and I don't know if he's passed on now, but he's like the most famous Christian physicist I've ever run across. Ran across him on, I think it was a TBN broadcast or something like that. But there are reasons why he is somewhat of an old Earth creationist, and just because you believe that, quote unquote, human history began 6,000 years ago, doesn't necessarily make the Earth fall in line with like being that age, and you certainly can't necessarily extend that out to the entire creation of the entire observed stellar universe. You see, that's where it begins to break down and look ridiculous. Okay, that's the best I can do. We've been dealing with information overload all day. So, and let's see. My most recent response was I contacted Wizard Lawrence Tam at the Empower Network to see if I could actually legally build the team that I want to build to get behind the ministry. Because, and I believe giving the most up-to-date real-time status reports they possibly can. There's a potential legal problem with my attempting to make the loan from my wife, or to originate the loan from my wife, that will potentially jumpstart the whole process of, like, getting money, getting traffic, and all this. Okay, so again, I'm taking all these risks all by myself. I have no lawyer. I have a lawyer checking into this particular issue who has agreed to do this as pro bono work, but that's the best I can do. So, faith marches on and Veritasia lives. That's all I can say. Okay, HRH 6/24/2014, yeah. 6/25/2014 now. This is the Veritasian Embassy report. All right. Love you guys. Bye.